So as Liz mentioned, my business is called Lighthouse. It's 2 words, Lighthouse, Architecture and Science. And we're all about, as it says, light-filled and light-footed homes, really designed for the specific site and the particular client, but our climate, so we really focus on designing for the cold or the extreme Canberra climate, which you guys are fairly familiar with too. So it's not just me. There's quite a team of us now. In fact, this is not all of us. There are now 16 of us, 10 on the architecture and design side, and 6 of us that are focused more on the science and the business admin. So an incredibly talented team. So I do stress that I've got this amazing group of people behind me or with me. And it isn't just architecture, it is science. We have grown to become Canberra's largest architecture business, or residential architecture business, to my surprise. But we are very different to most architecture practices because we do integrate the science. And I'm not going to dwell on that today, but I just will tell you a little bit about that. What on earth does that mean? This slide is to prompt me to tell you that we use thermal performance simulations or modelling at every stage of the design process. So right from the concept design, the architects, of course, are capturing the client's brief and thinking carefully about the site and how the people want to live and interact with their site. And they're making the most of solar passive design at the same time. But then they bring their concept design to the science team and we model it up and really check that we're optimizing things, that window sizing, eave offsets, projections, you name it. So a lot of science integrated with the architecture right through the design process, which I'm surprised there isn't more of in Australia. So if you are ever designing, encourage your architect to integrate some science. The other thing we do is physical testing, and I know someone else is going to be talking or has maybe already talked about thermal imaging. I've been thermal imaging and air leakage testing houses since 2008 now. So that's an integrated part for all of our projects, but we also offer that service to people who are just wanting to do more minor retrofit work or upgrade their existing home. I should stress that while people are most familiar with our new homes and big renovation projects, we do a lot of that small scale retrofit work as well. And 3/4 of our work is currently renovation work. It's not all about new builds. But that's not what I'm here to talk to you about today. Oh, this slide is my house. I'm also not going to talk about that today, but I did want to mention that there's a feature article about it in Sanctuary issue 50. There's also a webinar and one long webinar and a short video about it on the Renew YouTube channel. So that's an interesting little project. But today, what I want, we're here because I'm really passionate, and my whole team is really passionate about inspiring a broader audience and educating and motivating change. So we actually have a journal on our, instead of calling it a blog, the architects wanted to call it a journal, which has got lots of useful information. But in particular, there's one old blog post from 2016 that I did, or we all did, it's called Living Closer Together, Vibrant and Sustainable Suburbs. And it was all about co-housing and clever ways to get more than one family group on a site. And there are a variety of ways to do that. And this particular post was about the different sort of options in Canberra. And our planning regulations will be different to yours, but there may be some similarities. You might want to have a look at that. But today, I'm going to dive in, and there's going to be lots of pictures, not lots of words, I promise you, but I am going to take you through potentially 7 different examples of how we have done that. Put more than 2, sometimes 3 family groups on one site really successfully. So we'll start with the village, which is the one that Liz mentioned that's recently won a national award. Then the very colourful Aranda House, which is actually an extension of an existing house. Hidden House, which is a classic secondary residence. Finnis House is a clever design of a family home that splits into 2 homes once the kids have left to provide rental income. 5 is a classic dual occupancy, but there's a couple of clever things about it. 6, I put in at the last minute, actually yesterday. It's called Claire's House because it's an example of a house designed for a young person. It's a house designed to function as a share house, but then evolve into a family house down the track. And then the 7th, which we may not get to, is my former house, which you can find lots of information about in various places. It's a renovation of a family home that can split into 2. But let's dive into it. The village, this is a great project. We were incredibly excited when this family group contacted us. Gosh, I'm not sure how many years ago now. It's probably 5 years ago. It was 2 sisters and their mother. So Meg, Jane and Bron. Meg and Jane have both got their own families, and Bron's their mum. And they had decided that they wanted to look for a block to do a co-housing development. And they hunted around for quite a while. And then they found, eventually found a terrific block in Rivette, which is one of Canberra's most undervalued suburbs. Here's a little summary. Some of the things I've already said. It's won an award. Each of the projects that you'll see today are on our website, so you'll find further information and a summary like this at the front. I should, at this point, mention that the photos, just about all the photos you see today are taken by the wonderful Ben Wrigley, who's locked down in Melbourne. We hope to get him back to photograph some more projects in Canberra soon. I also list the builder. In this case, this one's 360. And there were two lead architects on my team involved in this project. One of them is the lovely Jeremy Wells, who's now based in Victoria. He moved on a couple of years ago, but is still well connected to us. And I don't think I'm letting the cat out of the bag to say that Jeremy and Ben may be collaborating on a co-housing project in Bendigo. So you'll hear more about that next year. Right, into the village. This is a lovely shot from the western side. We refer to the houses involved in this project as Yellow House. This one you can't see, but there's a yellow front door hidden behind those battens, and it's got bright yellow lining on the inside of the window box there. This little house here is Orange House. It's got the orange front door. And then around the corner, you can't see it in this shot, but is a bright red door, which leads to the family home of Jane and her gang. But we'll have a look in a bit more detail. First of all, this is the block the clients found. So this is what they came to us with. It's an existing battle axe block. It adjoins Greenway. So this lovely public green space out here. But and north is directly up the page in this shot. The existing 1970s 2-storey house did not take advantage of the northerly aspect at all. It had a big shed and thick plantings, which kept it completely separated from that green space. And it was dark and it was cold and it was hot in summer and freezing in winter. And the clients did live in it before and while we were designing, so they knew what it was like, and they had a dream, and their dream was to get rid of that house and to do something really clever. So this is what we came up with. This is the first, actually, the concept design, and it's a good example of where we pretty much nailed it with the concept design. Things evolved a little bit, but not hugely from this point on. We certainly optimised things thermally, but what we proposed was one house here for Meg and her partner Adam, 127 square metre home for them and their older children. And then on the southern side of the block, we've got 2 homes in one. So there's sort of a divide here or here. Actually, this bit evolved. You'll see the final drawings, it changed a bit. But there's a family home for Jane and David and 2 girls. And then a little house here for Bron, where she can hang out on her own or she can team up with the family. And there's some area detail over this side. So the large 2 houses in one is 220 square metres, which is about the size of your typical new one family group home in Australia, and 127 up the top. So we'll have a quick look into each of the houses now. Again, there's more info on the website, but this is the Yellow House. This is a lovely, I will show you the floor plan in a minute, but this beautiful deck here is to the northeast and looks out to the green space that previously wasn't taken advantage of. So they've got this gorgeous big deck. They've got a lot more garden since these shots were taken. This is the northeastern corner into the lounge room, which you can see down here. The hallway even is flooded with lovely northern light, nice kitchen space. Even the bedrooms actually access the northern light. There's windows, the way we've designed that northern light spills in across the corridor and into the bedrooms. But looking at that floor plan, there's that lovely deck. The green space is over here. Lounge and kitchen. This clever hallway where the light spills across into the rooms beyond. This gorgeous window seat here. So the whole house, we really avoid dead space in our design. So every part of the house works really hard, and it's a really beautiful place to be. So that's Meg and David's house, and the two retired greyhounds who live a very nice life. Oh, there's one of them. I couldn't get the other one in the shot. The red house, Jane's house, has the bright red door. This space is the connection, sort of the connection space between her place and her mum's house next door, and which again I'll show you in the floor plan. We're designing a nice pergola and outdoor space for them here at the moment, but this area again looks out and connects to that beautiful green space. So they've extended their yard even further. They've got plantings in between to make things secure and a bit more private, but they really open up in terms of that sense of space to the adjoining public way. Lovely functional design, lots and lots of hidden storage. We do clever pantries, clever study nooks that tuck away. A really, really effective family home. The floor plan for this one, again, remembering north is sort of just up through the corner here. The master bedroom or bedroom one gets lovely northeasterly light. This lounge and dining space and kitchen is flooded with light. They've also got a dedicated study. We often do some really clever study spaces as well. And then this is the entryway with the bright red door. So Bron's house, which I'll show you in a tick, is just over here. They have this family home has a second living space that we refer to as a multi-room, because it's designed to function well as a guest bedroom if you need one. We hate the idea of doing dedicated guest bedrooms that sit, doing nothing for most of the year. So this is their TV room most of the time. I lost my mouse. Where's my mouse gone? There it is. So TV room most of the time, but can be a guest room. But it can also be a guest room for Bron in her little house next door. She can also have guests stay here. So there are two doorways separating Bron's home from this main family home. So she can shut that down and they can have their separate space, or a lot of the time they do have that open up and they live together a lot. There's David in his kitchen, having a good time, whipping up a spag bog that night, I think. Some more, now into the orange house, Bron's home. Cute little house on the northwestern corner of the big house, but no westerly glazing, just north-facing glazing here for Bron. She does have one eastern window, you'll also see. So it's a cute little place that performs incredibly well. This is looking from the western wall in her unit back towards the main house. That's the connecting internal red door. So there's a red front door and a red door inside as well. Bron is a drum player. She actually has two big drum kits. So we've got lots of extra acoustic insulation as well as our thermal insulation so that she doesn't disturb the family next door when they're in their TV room. And a beautiful timber bathtub that her daughter's bought her as her housewarming present. And her little floor plan shows you that she's got this fantastic north-facing living, dining, kitchen space, clever laundry of her own tucked in here, so she doesn't have to share laundry next door. It was something we debated, would they have a shared laundry? And they actually decided to have a small integrated laundry space here. And then her bedroom, which is large enough that it can fit the two drum kits. And she actually has a king single bed because the drums are more important to her. And then she's got her own little private deck here. So she's got sliding doors out to the east and a nice little garden space and deck. And from here, you can again see there are two doorways separating the two houses. So she can zone off if she wants to. This doorway actually moved to this side. And she actually uses this space as an art space. It's fantastic. So it's full of flooded with northern light. So she has an easel set up here and she paints and draws, which is great. And there she is playing her drums. And that's the final floor plan, shows you the entire house, so 220 square metre house. So someone down the track, maybe someone will buy this and use it as one enormous home. More than likely, though, they'll use it as two in one. And I don't think this family are going anywhere in a hurry. To summarise, again, the red dots show you where the existing EER, I think 1.5 house was, and we've now got 3 homes that range from 7.6 stars up to 7.9 stars, and a very, very happy family group. And one last shot showing the 3 of them. I don't know how I'm going for time. Okay, I better keep chugging along. Aranda House. This one is a completely different situation. This block is not big enough to subdivide, and the clients came to us living in an existing home at the front of the block, a little house that ran east-west. So this new house you can see here faces directly north, but our clients were living in this house at the front initially, and they'd actually done a lot of clever retrofit. You know, they were really switched on to sustainability, but they realised that their block had sensational potential, and they were a bit torn. They didn't want to knock down and rebuild, considering the work they'd done to this house. So they came to us wondering if there was some clever workaround. And so what we actually did was technically an extension of the existing house. So this is not a secondary residence. It's not 2 houses on the one site. It's classed as one house, but it functions as 2 and has 2 family groups on site. So that shows you, north, straight up the page, shows you the existing house and the fantastic potential they had out the back. So we designed, this was designed by Jeremy Wells, who I mentioned earlier. He's down your way these days and does some fantastic work. We designed the 2-storey house that you saw. It is really space efficient, small floor area. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'll probably have it on the next slide, but all the living spaces down the bottom facing north. Notably, this room here can function as the parents' bedroom down the track. This young family had 3 small children, and so mum and dad were upstairs with the kids initially, but this space and this space can swap. So the plan was that the kids have this as an upstairs living space when they get a bit older. That's just a perspective during the design stage. We carefully planned so that each household had parking space and still had their private open space. So we made a nice private yard in the front for the existing house, so there's still room for a kid's trampoline and things. But the result was this incredible 8-star house, and the clients were not afraid of using some colour, and the results are just gorgeous. Very happy family home, and 2 very happy families, because although the original house is a 1960s house, thermally it had been massively improved. On to our third example. This one is a classic secondary residence. So in this case, our clients were a young middle-aged couple who were not intending to have children, struggling to afford land in Canberra, and David and Monique are their names, and David's parents owned a block in Curtin, a nice sort of fairly central suburb in Canberra, with an existing, again, 1960s home and a big backyard. And they realised that there was potential for them to create a small home. They didn't want a big home in that backyard. So that is what we set about doing. Again, north is straight up pretty much. The existing house sits here. Again, it's got solar panels on the roof, and his mum and dad had done quite a lot to upgrade this, so they were quite happy to stay put. And then we set about tucking in a secondary residence in the backyard, which was a little bit tricky because there were power lines running across the back and some other things and a bit of slope and various things to contend with, but we came up with a really neat solution, which you can see perspectives for here. This is summer solstice, showing that, again, we've optimised things so that no sun strikes the slab, yet in winter, sun floods into the living area and to the bedroom area. So this little place is 53.5 square metres. So it's not big, but it's an incredibly functional little home, which we'll see in a tick. This is it built, obviously. That's that lovely sun-soaked, these shots were taken in the middle of the year. Sun-soaked living area, sun-soaked bedroom down this end. A nice private outdoor space, so that they do feel quite private from the main house. This shot is actually taken sort of standing up against the existing house and looking across. We used some lovely recycled bricks, so it blends in with the existing house really nicely, and created a lovely corridor of garden in between. And again, used timber battens just to create a bit more privacy from the back area, little back deck of the existing house and this new home. Inside, this living space works really hard. It's the kitchen, it's also the dining space, integrated bench, it's also the study space, and it's also the sitting and living space. And this couple actually love to entertain, and they have dinner parties that spill from inside to outside over summer, and they've entertained quite large groups. The bedroom also serves as a TV room. There is actually a TV on the wall in the bedroom, so if they want to watch TV, they use the bed as the couch. The laundry is tucked into a little hallway between the spaces. The bathroom is in between the living and bedroom, and then above that is a loft space with really clever storage upstairs. Is there anything else I want to tell you about that?
Jenny, it looks like it has a lovely connection with the Aranda bushland around it.
Oh, this one's in Curtin. So the previous one certainly looks out into the Aranda bushland beautifully. This one is remarkably is surrounded by lots of houses, and it's not far away from the fence, but you don't feel it. Again, with good design and the way we've stepped it down the block, given the good northern light and left space for plantings, it feels like it's incredibly private and in the middle of nowhere, even though it's right in the middle of suburbia. So we work really hard on that, and my own home again is a classic example of that. I've got 5 houses very, very close to me, but we've made sure you create those lovely green spaces, so you've got that lovely sense of space and connection to outdoors. It's really important. Should I pause there? Anyone got any burning questions before I leap into the next few, or anything else, Liz, you want to ask?
No, I love the way you've stepped the front in to get the northern lighting and create the eaves. That's a lovely way of doing it. It's much softer than just having the straight wall and
No, it works really well. It's a great little house. I downsized into my current house, but when I go and visit that one, I go, oh, I want to live in that one. That's actually all I need. All right, we'll move along into Finnis house. This house is in Narrabundah, and some of you may know Canberra. Narrabundah is an older suburb, sort of inner southern suburb. It had a really rundown 1960s home on the site. We always do look carefully at the houses to see whether there's anything, whether they've got good bones and worth working with, and we do often work with them, but in this case, this house really needed to go. It didn't use the orientation well, didn't use the site well, and it was in really bad nick. But the clients were really smart. The client's actually a real estate agent. Peter and Tim are their names, but Peter's a real estate agent who realised this huge gap in the market. The people in Canberra are really switched on to sustainability, and they do want smaller, smarter homes, and they're just not available. So she was adamant she didn't want a big home, and she wanted a clever home that would be flexible as her children grow up and leave home, which one of them has nearly done. So this one is a family home at the moment, which will split into two down the track. And this shows you the north is just, you can see the small northern arrow down here. So north is just up through here. What we've done is create this house that is a wonky U, sort of, a wonky U shape. I don't know what letter you'd call that, but it functions as one large home at the moment, but this front section has been designed to split off, and that's been thought through very carefully so that it will have its own private, has its own entry, it has its own private open space, it's still 8-star, it has everything it needs. And then the house at the back has its own parking, its own entry, it's really lovely private. The majority of the private open space is left for the larger house. So yeah, what they have at the moment is this climate resilient family home of 165 square metres. So again, that's considered pretty small really for a family home. We do some a bit smaller than that, but it's not a whopping great home, that's for sure. But down the track, it will split into a 107 square metre home, the downsizing home for Peter and Tim, and this rental, potential rental at the front. So what's going on here is we've put the plumbing in. This space here currently functions as a storage room. It's got a nice big northern glazed door. And the kids have their 2 bedrooms. This child is already at 3rd year uni, has been away from home, comes back occasionally, but pretty much this room is vacant. Their younger child is off to uni this year. This wall will come down in the future. The kitchen that's been planned and the plumbing's there already, as I mentioned, will go in. This will become a lovely kitchen and living space with connection to the private outdoor area here. And then it'll become a 1-bedroom, a very comfortable 1-bedroom apartment. This entry space will close off here, so it can function as an entry and a quite comfortable study space as well. So a really lovely independent rental space at the front. And then at the back we have our lounge, kitchen, a farmhouse kitchen, which works really effectively, a very space efficient way to do a kitchen. A multi-room, so this can function as a guest room, so that's a good quality sofa bed that can fold out, so if Peter and Tim do have guests, they've still got room to host guests. And then there's a dedicated office space, because Peter is a real estate agent who works from home, so this has been designed for her. It works incredibly effectively and she can duck in and out or have visitors to her home office. Couple more shots. This is from the lovely lounge room. It's a wide angle lens, so things are a bit stretched, but this is the doorway that would close down, become a wall to separate the 2 units, or you might put in a big heavy door so you've got potential to still open through, but that's where things would close off. This house is particularly lovely. There's a water feature just outside this northern window, so not only do you get the beautiful northern light in winter, you get these gorgeous reflections off the water feature out there. Nighttime shot. This shows that's the lounge and the water feature, the kitchen space. So this is the metal clad section here is the downsizing house for Peter and Tim out the back, and this is the back wall of what will become that private unit. And you can see it does feel very private. It has been planned to function very well as 2 separate homes. Some more shots of that on the inside and plenty more on our website.
So Jenny, do all these houses have concrete floors for thermal mass?
All of the, yes, all of the ones you've seen, all of the new ones do, but it's not a given. I always stress to people that you don't have to have concrete to have a really high performance home. So a light and tight approach can work, and certainly, as I said, maybe I said 75% of our work currently is renovation work, and all of those houses, vast majority of them, have suspended timber floors, and we can still get them from usually 2 or 3 stars EER up to around 7.5 stars, which is usually about a 70 to 80% reduction in heating and cooling load, just by optimising the design use of the northern light and insulating well and making the building envelope more airtight. So yes, often concrete in the floors, and that's the only thermal mass. Generally, we tend not to use internal masonry walls, mainly just to keep cost down. And because we are so focused on optimising for our local climate, we find that additional thermal mass isn't needed the way we design. But yeah, concrete in the floors and insulated concrete for our climate, which would also be appropriate in your climate.
The Bendigo climate's quite similar to the Canberra climate, actually. So
yeah, absolutely. The thing with an insulated concrete slab, I always stress to people, though, is you do really have to design well, because once you insulate that slab, you really have to make sure you don't get any sunstrike to it over summer. Otherwise, you know, you've got a lot of extra heat trapped in your home. But we pay a lot of attention to that. Okay, the next one is a classic, or sort of a classic dual occupancy with a couple of interesting features to it that I'll point out. So this is in Campbell. We're a very established suburb in Canberra. Again, this one, luckily, very lucky clients, adjoins a lovely green space behind. So it, again, grabs space from the adjoining public greenway, which is just lovely, which at the moment actually looks green. This is back when things were much less green. So what we did in this case was our lovely client Marika came to us. She and her husband had lived in this beautiful 1960s architect designed, very well solar passively designed home in Campbell for a long time, and then her husband had passed away. And she had tossed up about whether to downsize it into a retirement village. She looked at all of the options available and was really frustrated again by the limited options available. So then she started thinking about, well, how about the kids, my daughter and her husband and almost adult grandchildren move into the main house, and we look at creating a downsized house for me out the back. But she wanted that dual occupancy option. So this one's a fairly old project now. Marika's been there for a long time. So with the dual occupancy, the houses didn't have to be connected. We chose to keep them connected because Marika wanted to sort of plan for the future. She wanted her family here to be able to access her unit if they needed to. She didn't want them. At the moment, it's all closed off and it's nice and private, and she lives very independently and privately here, but they're just planning ahead that maybe there'll be a point where we'll need that internal access. So at the moment, it's closed off. There's a fire rated door. We've thought about fire separation so that they can, in terms of planning, have approval as separate units. You can see that when I say downsizing, it's a fairly generous new small home. It's actually as big as my family home. It's in fact larger, slightly 1 square metre, I think, bigger than my house, which is a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom home. But Marika has a sister who's in a wheelchair. So again, she was really planning ahead for her sister to visit a lot, but also potentially her sister to live with her. So it's really clever use of the site. So they are all living very happily on this site together now, and it works beautifully. Oh, there's a close-up. So nice wide hallways, easy access, 2 generous bedrooms, a lovely generous study and sewing space. Marika does a lot of craft work as well as a lot of computer-based work. So there's a great storage area, lots of extra storage, lovely kitchen and then lounge. Looking out to the north, the deck is now, and the pergola are now covered with a lush grapevine, which is quite spectacular. And she's got, very lucky, she's got this gorgeous view through here to Black Mountain and Black Mountain Tower, and then beautiful connection out to that greenway. So much nicer than moving into a retirement village. She really nailed it. It's a beauty.
So how many square metres is it overall, or are we coming to that, Jenny?
Did I write that on one of them? Maybe I didn't put it on this one. On our website, it will say that the new house is 150. Wow. I didn't put it on, Liz. Sorry. Yeah.
Just
so
giving the last one was 58 square metres. And
yeah, that's right. Yeah, the last one was only 53.5. So yeah, this one is nearly three times bigger than that one. So it is pretty generous, and you can see from this shot in particular down here that it is a very generous living space. But very, very comfortable. And I should say that while the house next door was designed to solar passive principles, it wasn't insulated well, and the glazing wasn't great. And anyway, Marika can't believe how much more comfortable she is in her new version compared to the old
actually,
one.
Jenny, while you're mentioning insulation, someone has asked what levels of insulation you would normally recommend.
Yeah, we don't do anything crazy. In fact, the insulation levels recommended by the National Construction Code are actually very sensible. So we do R5 in the ceilings, occasionally R6. I always have to say that because I've actually got R6 bats at my house, and it's not because I thought I was more special than anyone else and needed R6. It was because my builder had some R6 bats left over and said, oh, I'm going to use them. I said, okay. So R5 in the ceiling, R2.5, so the higher density, R2.5 bats in the wall. I don't go to the R2.7. That doesn't stack up to me. And then under the slab, we either use a waffle pod slab construction, which is our 0.77 equivalent, or we use recycled Campbell stones or slab raft slab construction, where we put R1 extruded polystyrene underneath. So R1 on the floor, R2.5 in the walls, R5 in the ceiling. Going beyond that, the returns diminish significantly. The real issue with insulation is making sure there aren't gaps. Because if you've got just 5% gaps in your R5 ceiling insulation, then its effectiveness is reduced by half. So it's things like downlights and ducting and other gaps, or poorly installed insulation, which is a much bigger problem. So don't get too fixated on upping your R value. You can if you want to, but don't expect it to do miraculous things. Just most importantly, focus on filling the gaps is the priority. And on renovations and suspended timber floors, we install R2, usually polyester bats underneath. Okay, yeah, any other questions, Liz?
No, I'm not actually following them quite closely, but I've got lots of, we're really enjoying it.
Oh, good. This last one that I threw in at the last minute yesterday, I thought was worth shaking things up, because there's a lot of talk about, I've had examples of family homes that split into two. This one starts with a young single person. This client, incredibly impressive. A single woman came to us, said, I want to do this, and I want to do it really cleverly and very affordably. And we've come up with this cracker design for her on quite a tricky block. It's got a bit of a slope to it, and north on the diagonal. Come up with a design that functions beautifully as a share house for her at the moment. So she's got a housemate. And then potentially evolves into a family home for her if her situation changes, or if she wants to sell it. You know, it is a beautiful family home and would suit a family as well. These are two of my architects pretending to be the happy couple. That's Sarah Lebner, who designed this house, and Duncan, both fantastic architects. So this little design wraps around the site. It slopes north. North is up through the corner, and the site slopes down this way. What we did is we worked with that slope, so it actually steps down twice. So there's a split here and a couple of steps, and then another split in the slab and stepping down here. So Claire, our client, has her bedroom down in this wing. We did clever things for Claire, like we designed, she wanted a walk-in robe and storage space, but we just created the space. She did the fit out. She and her dad did a lot of work after we built the house. We designed the carport and the carport doors, but she did that afterwards with her dad. We designed the deck and the courtyard space, but she did that afterwards with her dad. So she's got this lovely, quite private space down this end, which has got a lovely study nook. We do a lot of clever study spaces tucked into hallways. Again, we don't leave dead spaces. And this beautiful open living and dining kitchen space. entry. And then she has a housemate. So the housemate has, I'm not sure which one they're using as a bedroom. They sleep in one, and the other is a multi-use space for guests, or is it an alternate living space, or maybe they've got it set up as a study. I'm not sure. I think last time I was there was a bike in it, and a bit of storage and a desk. And then the laundry and toilet and bathroom. So you can see how this works really well for two independent single women sharing a house. If Claire does have a family down the track, you can see this is a beautiful kids wing and a terrific family home. So again, just encouraging people to think flexibly about their houses is, I think, really important. There's some lovely pictures, and she's got this gorgeous dog called Jono, who's a hoot. And you can see that one of those splits in the slab as it steps down.
She's got some kind of street art.
Sorry?
Some kind of street art.
Does, yeah. So we knew with the nature of this design, there was going to end up being this wall opposite the living spaces. So we decided to make that wall a brick wall, and she was adamant. She wanted to get some art done. So she knows a local graffiti artist, John Voir is his name, and she got him to. That is her and her sister. So she talked through the brief for the project, and this it's quite striking. We actually appeared this, you'll find a little video on our website. Oh gosh, what's it called? There's a TV show, Australia by Design or something or other. This house featured on it. So there's actually a little video on tour and I air leakage tested and things. You'll find it on our website. But yeah, lovely little project. And then the final example, and I'll romp through this, is another example of two homes in one. And this is my previous home. And it features in Sanctuary issue 20. And it's also in the Your Home Guide. So the federal government's Your Home Guide, which has just been updated, hasn't been released yet, features my home as the ACT case study. And the new version is actually going to feature my current home as the ACT case study. But check this out, because I bought this house because it had good bones, it had good orientation, and it was in a nice suburb in a little cul-de-sac. But it was the worst house I have ever lived in thermally. It was disastrous. But we turned all that around. But I spent ages working out, are we going to renovate it? Are we going to extend? Are we going to knock off the top? What are we going to do? I've got this big block and this house that doesn't work well because of the second story done so badly. And then we eventually realised that there was potential, if we're going to invest money in doing this house up, it was a bit of a toss-up whether it was worth it. But when we realised we could turn it into effectively 2 apartments, so make a fantastic family home that then gets split into 2 apartments, then it did make sense to do. And we took the laundry space out of the house and into a shared space in the garage. We left it as a family home, didn't implement all of the changes on the second story. Let me slow down just slightly. This is the ground floor. This was designed as a residence for me and my now ex-husband long term. We thought of all sorts of things, ageing in place. I've already had 2 hip replacements, so ramp access was important. I had a neighbour in a wheelchair and we were adamant we're going to get all that sorted. We did. And then the staircase had previously been in the middle of the house, compromised the house thermally. It was just crazy and functionally made it disastrous. So we took it out of the middle of the home and we moved it into a very small extension off the edge of the house, so that we then have a front door here, and this space is effectively a shared entry space when it does function as 2 apartments. You go upstairs to this apartment, or you come in here to, coming down here to the ground floor, up to this one. We created a rooftop terrace garden on top of a single garage we extended with, and we have planned for where a kitchen would go in upstairs once the kids grew up and moved out. A slight rejigging of the wet areas to make the bedrooms a bit more functional. So it was another great example, again, of thinking cleverly. And I had planned, if I stayed here, there was then room to do a secondary residence in the backyard. So I always planned that there would be a third. small house, and we would all share the laundry facilities, and we'd all have one car, electric car we would charge. I called it was for when all my girlfriends' husbands fell off the perch. We're all going to live on this site together. It's going to be great. Hopefully someone else will do that. Some more shots. It was a joy to live in. Massive transformation. It was a shocker of a house before we did this work. And I'll pause there because, as usual, I've gone a bit longer. And I'm very happy to take questions from anyone.
One I've got, hang on. So Vanessa wants to know if you air test.
Yes, yeah, we air leakage test all of our houses. So we now get all of our projects, even renovation projects, are getting between 2.5 and 6 air changes per hour at a test pressure of 50 pascals. So we don't use internal air barrier membranes. I don't follow the passive house approach, which is much more expensive and requires altered construction. We just rely on good detailing and good internal lining with the plasterboard, and minimising ceiling penetrations and not using ducting, because our houses don't need ducted heating and cooling systems, and they perform really well. So we get massive reductions. So a lot of houses start at between 15 and 20 if they're renovations, air changes per hour, or even worse, we get them down to around 5 or sometimes lower. Yeah.
Okay. So going on to that, so you don't need a heat recovery.
Ventilation. No, you don't. Although we're on the verge now of I'm starting to spec them for all of our houses, because the rough rule of thumb is less than 3 air changes per hour, but it's one of those really, it's a difficult science to quantify. And I have heat recovery ventilation in my home. I have 3 paired systems. So again, we don't have a big centralised system. They're more expensive and are usually not needed. I only run 1 pair in my house, and that's only in the middle of winter, for the few weeks where we fully close up the house. I'm sitting in my bedroom at the moment, and the majority of the year and most of winter, once we go to bed, 2 people in a bedroom in houses like this require the window to be tilted open slightly. So heat recovery ventilation, I think, is going to become standard. It was useful in the bushfires too, so we couldn't open up as much as we normally do for those lovely, cool, clear Canberra nights. The heat recovery ventilation allowed me to bring in more fresh air, but what we discovered was that everyone discovered, not just us, that the filters in the heating and ventilation systems in Australia and in California, this is everywhere, this is a problem, are not really up to dealing with smoke. I've written an article about that in Renew or Sanctuary as well. But I think that's going to become common. But I just stress to people, you don't have to have a really big, expensive, centralised system. There are these little paired units that can work very effectively.
And do you recommend insulating internal walls?
Yeah, look, I forgot to mention that. We do insulate internal walls. We use 1.5 bats internally, and that does have a thermal benefit, but the main benefit is really acoustic. It just helps to dampen the noises between areas, which contributes to that lovely, peaceful, still, quiet sense you have in these new homes we do.
Yeah, that's another word that's been going around this morning, peaceful, that people find us as peaceful, which is lovely.
Yeah.
Alice would like to know how easy it is to specify a blower test in your building contract.
Look, it shouldn't be too hard. It depends on your builder, really. I've written an article about how to choose a good builder too. That's in Sanctuary or Renew. I always get muddled up about which one's in which. It shouldn't be hard. And your builder, I stress, always work with your builder. Don't see it as an adversarial thing. You want to have a good relationship with your builder. If you've got a builder who's interested in what you're trying to do, talk to them about what you're aiming for. Tell them not to be frightened about an air leakage test. Most of the air leakage testers I know are really happy to educate and help the builder. So it doesn't have to be a terrifying thing. And if you look on the AIVAA, I can't think what the acronym stands for, but our air leakage testing group that I'm a member of actually has a recommended spec to put in a building contract, so they can provide some guidance on that. The air leakage ATMA is the Air Tightness Testing Association, Measurement Association. We've linked up with the British. Anyway, if you Google ATMA, it will take you to some useful information, but it certainly can be done.
Okay, now I've got a question from Anusha, who's actually in this Monash Uni Solar Decathlon team. I have to get that right. So there's a few of those with us today, and they're trying to design a net carbon house, or net zero carbon house, I should say. And she has a very difficult question, which you probably can't answer, but I'll ask it. What's the cost estimate range for these renovations? So you might just give us some sort of ballpark figure for...
Oh, no, I'm really happy to talk about price, but I do premise it by saying Canberra is the most expensive place in the country to build, unfortunately. For a new home, and you also have to be aware when you ask about costs, you'll get a range of different answers based on what people are including in the cost. I always give the fully inclusive cost because people need to know how much houses cost. You can't sell them a burger and then upsell them fries and Coke and then they break their heart. You've got to give them the rude shock up front. So my house, for example, the contract price was $450,000. It's 150 square metres, so that's an easy breakdown, 3,000 per square metre. But the 150 is the internal footprint. So again, this is a big difference between pricing. It does have 36 square metres of carport and excellent storage. It's got a great big front deck and pergola. It's got a lovely western courtyard and pergola. It's got an eastern deck and pergola. It's got really clever use of the space. So there's a lot more than 150 square metres in that. So how do you put a square metre price on that? If I do include all of those things, then it comes down to around 2,500, 2,300, I think, or even less, 2,200 per square metre. But that includes fixtures, fittings, appliances, absolutely everything, water tanks, pumps, clotheslines, letterboxes, courtyard walls, side fences, driveways, all the things that a lot of people, when they quote prices, will take out. So we did a lot of comparison when we developed our design approach. We've got what we call a modular design approach, comparing, particularly when I was doing my house, to other project home prices. And I could have spent the same amount of money and I could have got a 6-star, 200 square metre home. Wouldn't have had any more functional spaces, would have been a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom home, but it would have been a lot bigger, 133% bigger, and it would have cost me twice as much per square metre to heat and cool. So when you look at it that way, it's not more expensive.
I agree. There's not enough people thinking about the future cost of housing rather than the immediate cost. Yeah, we talked about that quite a bit with Peter and Virginia and their Timbercrete house. They both said that, really that any extra costs they so appreciated now, and people just love coming to their house and feeling so comfortable and warm without using heating and cooling.
Yeah,
I think it's worth a lot. To a question about the science part of your name. And I know that a lot of people think, oh yeah, we've got to do this energy thing, to get stars. I have a little bit of a problem with the stars in Bendigo because I actually reduced the number of stars I could get because we're lumped in with Ballarat, and Ballarat are considerably colder than us.
Yes.
And not as warm in summer. So I really wanted to prove myself from the summer sun more than a Ballarat home. So I was 7.5 stars. I've actually gone down below 7 stars because I had a light coloured roof and I wanted wider eaves. But I think people need to work with the builder, the designer, and because you've got everybody in one, it's easy. But a lot of people go to an architect, or they'll go to a designer, or they'll go to a draftsperson, and then they'll think about the energy rating after. Whereas it's something that really ought to be integrated in this whole process.
Absolutely. And that was, the tool that NatHERS, the Nationwide House Energy Rating Scheme, the software was always intended to be used as a design tool. And I I feel like I'm allowed to bag out CSIRO and the government a bit because I've worked for both those organisations as a science communicator. It's been so badly communicated. So very few people in the housing industry, and I mean vast majority of architects, vast majority of builders have no idea that it's meant to be used as a design tool, and they purely see it as a compliance tool. So finish your design process, fall in love with your design, not know how much it's going to cost, not know how it's going to perform, then get to the end, building approval, and get your EER done. When it's too late to change things, or it does become expensive to change things then if you are locked into all sorts of other things. If you make the changes early, they don't necessarily incur any extra expense. So I really encourage everyone, don't, your designer or your architect or your builder may well not be used to integrating the science early, but you can. And there are NatHERS assessors all across the country. You might have to look around a bit, and I certainly can't do all of them. We get lots of inquiries, but there are lots of people out there that can help you. And it's worth checking their level of experience too. Some of the assessors are used to just churning out the minimum 6-star. Others are really used to want to help you optimise things, and they also understand construction costs, so can help you work out the biggest bang for buck. And I think that's one of the really important things for us, that, you know, I've been doing this for 12 years now. I've done a lot of work with low income houses, you know, a lot of houses. So I do know where the bang for buck is. But I'm not the only one who knows that. So yeah, do look for the help. It's really, you know, your house is your most important thing. It's where you spend all your life, and you want to be comfortable. It's worth it, a little bit of extra investment, and it's usually only a few $100s, but it's interesting how people will go, oh, why would I pay for that? It's like, oh, think about it. It's really can make a massive difference.
I think when you're paying $78 for your winter electric bill, you know, kind of notice. So yeah, and that's where we should mention My Efficient Electric Home too, which is a fantastic Facebook group for those people building, designing, living, and just want to retrofit, or you know, it's just makes so much sense to have a few solar panels on the roof and leave the gas off the property. And,
yes.
Yep. Go on.
None of those homes you saw today have gas, so they're all electric. Yeah, but thank you. Sorry?
They all have solar on the roof?
Not all of them. It's in some of them. I don't have solar on my roof, but I'm a seed investor in Canberra's first community solar farm, which is going to go, should be active in about a month or so. So then I'll be offsetting my entire annual consumption just with 3 kilowatts. But not all of them. We always plan, so we know where the inverter is going to go. We know where the panels are going to go. Some of these houses were built a little while ago when panels, anyway, and on tighter budgets. So we get the envelope right, and then they can put the PV on later. But I guess for some of them, their energy consumption has dropped so dramatically that they haven't taken the next step, you know, because they don't feel like they're paying much money at all. Yeah.
Okay, well, Jenny, it's been a fantastic talk, and we've got lots of great feedback from it.